Welcome back to American Morning. You know, it's not just the politicians that are debating the stimulus package. There's a small but vocal group of economists and libertarians who believe that the massive spending plan is not the answer to the economic crisis. In fact, one D.C. newspaper dubbing the group the do-nothing crowd. The Cato Institute is part of that group. They've taken out a full-page ad in some major newspapers to make their point. And joining me now is a senior fellow at the Cato Institute and economist Alan Reynolds. Thanks so much for being with us this morning.
Glad to be here.
So, right now, of course, we all can agree on one fact, and that is that, you know, the economy's in a really tough spot, arguably one of the worst that we've seen in modern times. We're looking at record unemployment, news of layoffs, and there are some who say we should do nothing. How do you make that argument work?
Well, the folks who signed the letter we're talking about, there's 250 economists, 3 Nobel laureates. I know quite a few economists who aren't on the list. Alberto Alessini at Harvard, Robert Barrow at Harvard, Harold Uhlig at University of Chicago. Basically, the research is that government spending, deficit spending, if you will, is rarely helpful. I mean, somebody should ask for one. They're not saying do nothing. The Fed's doing a lot. Probably a good idea. Tax policy sometimes, if it's clever, can help. But basically, you've got over-indebted firms, you've got housing prices went too high. Some of these things we just have to work our way out. We always do. And we did before there was a Fed and before there were TARP plans and things like that, recessions lasted about 10 months. This one's actually a little on the long side, not very deep yet, contrary to what everybody's saying, but it's a bad one. It's not the worst.
Very interesting. Well, in yesterday's Wall Street Journal, you argued that stimulus investments in health and education are misplaced because they actually don't address the areas of highest unemployment. President Barack Obama actually spoke to that issue. Listen to what he said, and I'd like to get your reaction.
Okay.
But even as this plan puts Americans back to work, it will also make the critical investments in alternative energy and safer roads, better health care, and modern schools, because that's how America will retain and regain its competitive edge in the 21st century.
So the argument seems to be if we're going to spend money to put people back to work, we may as well invest in future crucial parts of our future, like schools, like education. What do you think about that?
You can call anything an investment. Some of it is. The government does some investing. What he's basically saying is you're going to expand the government. More than half of the money either goes directly to government or to education, which is primarily government run. And health, a little bit for that. Are these good things? Sure, lots of things are good things, but they compete with the private sector for real resources, and that's the problem. And when we see government go up, private investment tends to go down, including investment in housing. And I cite some of that research in the Wall Street Journal article and also in another one in National Review. They're both at cato.org.
Yeah, and it's also interesting because in this full-page ad that's going out, one of the points made is that more government spending by Hoover and Roosevelt did not pull the U.S. economy out of the Great Depression in the 1930s, and it also didn't solve Japan's, quote, lost decade in the 1990s. What does history teach us then as a new generation is looking at this, and this is a problem that many of them are going to inherit because of the deficits? What is the solution?
Well, the only deficit we've seen of this magnitude, we're talking about a deficit of about 12% of GDP, at least 11. And the only thing that came close among industrial countries was Japan in 1998. They came close to 11%. Did that stimulate the economy? No, that's just part of the same lost decade. They doubled national debt. Basically, when you borrow from Peter to pay Paul, you've got to pay Peter some interest. And at the present time, the interest is low, but we start rolling over $2 trillion of debt. It's going to be a little hard to sell. And some of the folks who are now with the administration, notably Peter Orszag, OMB director, warned against deficits that were much smaller than this and said that they are going to hurt the economy in the long run. They're absolutely right, and the long run isn't that far away. To say that this is going to create 3 or 4 million jobs, look, we got out of 2 deep recessions, the one in the early 80s, for example, creating 7 to 10 million jobs in 3 years, and there was no program of this sort. This is just basically wasting money.
Very interesting point of view, and as you said, it's all available for people to read on cato.org. Alan Reynolds, thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.